Many thousands of years ago, long before written history, early man probably discovered the first pearl while searching the seashore for food. And throughout history, the pearl with its mysterious inner glow and shimmering iridescence has been one of the most highly prized and sought-after gems in the world. Few other gems have captured the hearts and dreams of mankind as dramatically. Few have so significantly shaped the world and our culture as we know it today. It's no wonder that these gems of the sea have woven such an intricate path into our lives. In the ancient world, pearls from over 1,000 different species of pearl-bearing oysters and mollusks were found on every continent on the globe. But today, due to man's ravenous appetite for these treasures from the sea, there are only a handful of locales around the world where these oysters still exist. To understand the pearl's impact on our history, one must first understand how a pearl is formed. In the mystery of nature, a pearl is created by an oyster or mollusk quite by accident. Pearl-producing oysters are simple creatures that languish in water and feed on plankton. Occasionally, while the mollusks passively feed, a grain of sand or parasite will lodge itself inside the soft inner body of the oyster, causing its host great discomfort. Unable to expel the intruder, the oyster engages a defense mechanism within its body to protect itself from the intruder. The oyster begins to secrete a smooth, hard, crystalline substance around the intruder in order to protect itself. This substance is calcium carbonate based and is commonly referred to as nacre. As long as the intruder remains within its body, the oyster will continue to deposit nacre around it, layer upon layer. After a few years, the intruder will be totally encased in a smooth and lustrous cocoon of nacre, which has now become a pearl. But how precious pearls are formed from what an oyster regards as merely protection against irritation is one of nature's most prized secrets. For all his technology and science, man is still unable to recreate this phenomenon outside of an oyster. For nacre is not just a soothing substance. It is composed of millions of microscopic crystals, each aligned perfectly so that light passing along the axis of one is reflected and refracted by the other to produce a tapestry of light and color. There is no doubt that the advent of pearl culturing has made a wide assortment of pearls available to the world's population. The sea around the southern half of Japan is one of the largest habitats for Akoya oysters in the world. The process of pearl cultivation is painstaking and time-consuming, but the pearl growers and workers perform their life's work with patience and dedication. To diminish the risk of overexploitation and species extinction, a sizable amount of Japan's Akoya oysters are laboratory bred in tanks. At 6 months old, after egg fertilization and incubation, baby oysters are taken from the hatcheries and placed in special areas in bays around the southern part of Japan to grow to maturity. This is the beginning of a miraculous partnership between man and nature. When they're grown to maturity, which is about 3 years of age, the healthiest oysters are selected and brought from the sea and placed in holding tanks. Once taken from its tank, the oyster is placed in an eye-level stand and opened slightly so that its body and muscle tissue are not damaged. With surgical precision, an incision is made in the oyster's body, and the mantle tissue, which contains cells that will begin to secrete nacre, is placed within the body in a location that will be relatively safe for the oyster. Then, a small round piece of shell, or nucleus, is inserted into the oyster next to the piece of mantle tissue. This painstaking operation requires a great deal of skill by the insertion technician, for one small mistake can result in the death of the oyster. For the next 2 to 3 years, the oysters are carefully monitored and cared for by their ever-vigilant guardian keepers. Water temperature is constantly checked, salinity and alkalinity measured. In some cases, the oysters are removed from the sea every 10 days and cleaned of barnacles or parasites which might interfere with their feeding and health. This meticulous care and nurturing of host oysters is necessary to produce the best pearls possible. After years of vigilance and care, pearl farmers retrieve the oysters they have raised. In some cases, their diligence and dedication end in vain. Since pearl cultivation relies on the whims of Mother Nature, a gem is not always guaranteed. Japanese Akoya pearls are the most difficult and costly to grow due to the low survival rates of the host oysters. Less than 5 in 10 will survive the nucleation process. Of the survivors, about 40% will successfully encircle the shell nucleus irritant with nacre. Finally, less than 5% of pearls that are born can be considered high quality. But when the crop's first Akoya pearl is extracted from its oyster, the pearl farmers soon forget their failures and delight in the birth of this magnificent jewel. After the harvest, growers and workers will auction their pearls to processors who will buy the gems and prepare them for sale on the open market.